Okay, we'll get started up. I want to thank you all for showing up on a Monday evening, and we had a good turnout here in the Ranger Room. I'm Dr. Eric Schmaltz, Departmental Chair of Social Sciences, Professor of History, and thank you all for coming. We got a very special guest, and what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to make a few opening remarks, very brief, and then we will have Governor Nigh give a special talk to us at this forum, and then we'll have a question and answer session near the end of the talk tonight. At any rate, Northwestern Oklahoma State University Social Sciences Department and the Institute for Citizenship Studies are pleased to host Governor George Nigh here tonight. I also wish to take a moment to thank Dr. Aaron Mason in political science and Jordan Green, our editor of the Northwestern News, for serving as my liaisons and bringing Governor Nigh to Alva, to Northwest Oklahoma. They helped make this possible for us tonight. We chose President's Day, Governor Nigh chose President's Day today to hold this special forum about the difference between being a politician and a public servant. There can be a difference there. And he hopes young Oklahomans will get involved in government, and he especially tonight wants to also reach out, among others, to our political science majors on this matter. Governor Nigh, there's so much we can talk about, his background, his many experiences. He served more terms as governor than any other in Oklahoma history, a record 4 times, spanning back many years, providing him with some excellent political perspectives on issues of leadership and service. His political career began much earlier, however. He was a student at East Central State College in Ada, where he filed to run for a seat in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. At a very young age of 23 in 1950, he became the youngest member of the state legislature. He authored the bill that made Oklahoma the state song. He's also the youngest lieutenant governor in the nation when he was first elected in 1958. He's also quite instrumental, he may talk more about this later, in promoting and expanding the Oklahoma State highway system. And he also served as president of the University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond, where he lives currently. The forum won't be Governor Nigh's first time at Northwestern. He's made many trips out here before. One, Dr. Mason and I recall, was way back in the spring of 2011. It was an evening function with the foundation. Dr. Mason had received the first annual Donovan Reichenberger fundraising award, and Governor Nigh was here for that. We made a trek up to Jesse Dunn, 3rd floor, showed him around the department. We still don't have an elevator yet for that building. It's a great building, we love it. But he was so kind to come visit us. He remembered us all these years later. So we're so pleased to invite him back to Northwestern all these years later. It just seems like yesterday. Now, before we get started, everyone, please be sure to turn off your mobile phones during the forum. After presenting his main talk, Governor and I will also take questions from the audience. I think Jordan Green will be helping out with that, and perhaps Dr. Mason. We'll save that for the end of the session. And with that, I will turn things over to Governor Nigh. Thank you. And also my students and Dr. Mason's students, if you haven't done so already, at the end of the session, we have a sign-in sheet for bonus points. Hopefully you came here just because you're interested, but we do have that back at the piano in the back room. And with that, we'll get started. Governor Nigh, thank you.
Well, first of all, let me tell you, I'm honored to be invited back to Northwestern and to Northwest Oklahoma. And I'm going to not use any notes. I did not write a speech. I just want to visit with you, so I'll visit with you a little bit, and then they're going to ask me some questions. I gave them a list of what to ask me. And then you are at liberty to ask anything you want to ask, anything. And so that way, instead of me picking out what my subject's going to be, you're going to pick it out. So I want you to know that you just be thinking of something you want to ask me, and it will not make me mad, political, non-political, religious, whatever it is, you just feel free to ask me. But I just tell you, all these years that I've made speeches, I've only given 4 written speeches in my life because I can't read the writing, and I hate to say that reminds me of a joke. And I want to, And I was telling the group we had dinner with tonight that one of the written speeches I gave was my first State of the State. We just had Governor Stitt's second State of the State speech a couple of weeks ago. And White House, the president does a State of the Union speech. And my first year in 1959, January, I wrote a State of the State speech and talked about lowering taxes and raising teachers' salaries and doing whatever else, building highways, whatever else I could think about. But I read it, and I could tell with the joint session of the legislature how bored they were. And I just kept reading it, and they just basically went to sleep. And so for the next 7 years, I would write a State of the State speech, print it, and put it on their desk. And then they said, now we're going to have Governor Nigh give his State of the State address. And I said, you have it on your desk, it's printed, read it later. Right now, I just want to visit with you. Oh. So I want to tell Northwestern, Oklahoma, that I didn't write one, so you can't read it, so you got to ask me a question. But I don't mind what the question is. And when I visit, I base it on my experiences, my pluses, my minuses, my achievements, my failures. I don't mind discussing basically anything. But I also, with the students here, I also want to always tell you that you need to start planning early in your life what you want to be when you actually grow up. And then if you're the speaker, you want to I wonder if they're actually listening to me. So I thought, how do I know that the crowd is listening to me? So I'm going to tell you how I discovered what to do. And I can prove that whether or not you're listening to me. On the count of 3, turn and say hi to the person behind you. 1, 2, 3. Hi. You're listening. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's nice of you. But anyway, I'm from McAllister, southeastern Oklahoma, but I was the governor of all 77 counties. And one of the things of which I'm most proud of is that I loved all 77 counties, and every year as lieutenant governor, for 16 years as lieutenant governor, 8 years as governor, I visited every single county at least once every year. And I just love to identify. Some days I'd be out 3 or 4 different counties on the same day, flying in a state airplane with security driving me and all that. So all I did, take a nap, make a speech, take a nap, make a speech. And here we are. And I want you to meet my friend. Louise, can you stand up? I want you to meet my friend from Pocket City, Louise Abercrombie. Would you welcome her?
Newspaper, and I covered George many a time. Sometimes I had to correct him, but otherwise it was
Now, then I'm going to ask Denny and Marion Hopkins to stand up from Woodward. Denny and Marion Hopkins, they're from Woodward. And the reason I wanted you to see them is that they're a classic example of how much fun I've had in office. Louise from Ponca City, I used to go up to the Pioneer Woman statue. I used to go to E.W. Barlin's house, Barlin Estate, and all that sort of stuff. She used to write articles about me, stories about me. Most of them were pretty good. And now, just to think of all those years back, she and I saw her tonight, and I just fell in love with her once again. She's a sweet journalist, and she did a good job at the Ponca City News. And I'm happy you and your daughter are with us today. And then Denny and Marion, now they're from Woodward. And he was my Northwest Oklahoma kind of campaign coordinator that I met in the Young Democrats years and years and years ago. But I call him Crazy Denny and Sweet Marion. So I just want you to know there's a difference between a husband and the wife. But he is a classic example of friendship, and I'm going to tell you that in a minute when I talk about the Northwest Passage. But over all the years, he's been there loyalist to me and for me. And I appreciate so much the friends over all these years that have helped me in so many elections, so many campaigns. And I'm very proud to say that many, many times when I ran for office, my county or my city chairman was a registered Republican. Because I wanted to show that I believe in all 70 counties. I believe in united, I believe in bringing us all together. Now here we are at Northwestern. Let me tell you, just so that you'll know a little bit about history, if you don't know it. If you've already heard it, just go back to sleep. But just think, back in 1907, when we became a state, a couple of things happened to show how our forefathers were trying to make this all 77 counties. And what's interesting to me is that the county seat in all 77 counties, 1907, was located a horseback ride from the furthest distance in the county to the county seat and back in one day. That's where they picked the county seat. That anybody in that county could get to the county seat and back home in the same day on a normal horse. Isn't that something? And then we're here at Northwestern. And just think, when they organized higher education, they wanted all students in all 77 counties. Now, we love the out-of-state students who come, but back in those days, it was in-state students. But they could come to a university or a college reasonably close to home. And we established, in higher education, we established Oklahoma University, which was the professional university for doctors and lawyers. And then we had Oklahoma A&M, now OSU, Oklahoma Agriculture and Mechanical University for Agriculture and Mechanical. But now that one's in Stillwater, one's in Norman, so that's not close to all 77. So that's when we came up with the regional. And so here we are at one of the 6 regional universities, and it shows what our forefathers thought about bringing everybody together, making sure everybody had equal opportunities. Northwestern, Northeastern, Southeastern, Southwestern, East Central, and Central. The name of the 6 regional universities. They used to be colleges, but now they're universities. And then we created all the junior colleges all over the state. And later on, we created VOTEC. And I read an article in today's paper, or yesterday's paper, about how the state is, Governor Stitt and the state chambers of commerce and so forth are talking about how we can get people organized to get better education and training. Now, no, 2 different words, education and training together. That means college, high school, VOTEC training. And I can remember, interesting to me about how pulling things together, Governor Henry Bellman, no, Governor, let me get my governors. I just went blank. See, that's why I don't have notes. Dewey Bartlett, Governor Dewey Bartlett, Republican governor. George Nigh was Democratic lieutenant governor. And for about a year and a half, we had problems because he didn't want me to do anything, and I didn't have anything to do. The governor and the lieutenant governor are not teammates. They don't run together in Oklahoma. Some states, that's the same party. Someday they file as a team, but in Oklahoma, you file separately, you could be of different parties, and you don't work together. And when I became lieutenant governor in 1959, we had over 300 state agency boards and commission, and the lieutenant governor was a member of one of them. One agency. And what's interesting is that there was no, I had a half-time secretary, no driver, no security, no press secretary, no administrative assistant. I was lieutenant governor, second heartbeat away from the governorship of Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, when the governor crosses the state line, the lieutenant governor has all the governor's authority. The governor, if he's in New York City, we have a riot, he can't call out the National Guard. The lieutenant governor is the governor. And what an experience. But I didn't attend any conferences. I didn't attend anything explaining to me who was in charge of what. I didn't attend anything about the budget, what we were going to do, what laws were going to be considered. I just had one committee to go to every once in a while. Now let me say that I served as 16 years as lieutenant governor. And I have introduced many times as having served as lieutenant governor longer than anybody in Oklahoma history. That's not correct. Jim Berry from Stillwater, Oklahoma served 20 years under 5 different governors, because governors could only serve one term, but lieutenant governors could serve as many as they got elected. So every governor under whom he served 4 years. He served 20 years, but he remained in Stillwater and ran his bank, of which he owned and was president. And anytime he wanted to go to the Capitol, they'd send a highway patrolman up, pick him up, drive him down to the Capitol. And during the war, World War II, when they had rationing, and Denny Hopkins would sell shoes, but that you could also nylon hoses. You remember those days? During the war, they were rationed, and they only came in once a month. But on that day, once a month, the highway patrolman would go to Stillwater, pick him up, and drive him to Clinton, Oklahoma, because he had a friend who owned a clothing store that would put aside some hose for his wife. And then they'd drive him back to Stillwater. And that's all the lieutenant governor. So the governor and I said, I want something to do, I want something to do. And so the Democratic legislature, Republican governor, Democratic legislature, passed a bill creating the Department of Tourism. Made the lieutenant governor the chairman and director. The lodges, the state parks, tourism, gave you a full-time job. But it's one day I was at the mansion, and Governor Bartlett had a reception for somebody that was visiting us, and I was invited because I was lieutenant governor, and I was shaking hands, and Governor Bartlett stopped me and he said, you know what, we need to do something that you can do that doesn't make me mad. I said, well, let's figure something out. And in about 10 days, what I saw in today's paper, they're concerned about the development education, the professional education, not just colleges, but the education, the training of employees. They don't have enough employees trained. And you know who told them that? The commanding general of Tinker Air Force Base told the governor that they may close down Tinker Air Force Base because they can't find the employees that train that they need for Air Force Base. And the Governor Bartlett called me and he said, Democratic Lieutenant Governor, would you chair a committee and fly on an airplane to South Carolina and study their boat tech system? I said, yeah. So the Tinker provided a Tinker Air Force Base plane. We flew to South Carolina and looked at their boat tech system. I was chairman of the group, and I came back and I recommended to the governor that we adopt a VOTEC system for the state of Oklahoma. And I recommended that we hire the director of the VOTEC system in South Carolina to come to Oklahoma as our director, and we stole him away. And in 5 years, we were ranked #1 in the United States in the VOTEC system. Well, kind of like higher education. You want everybody to be able to be close to education. If they can't travel, they may still need to be on the farm, they still may need to be running the grocery store, but all 77 counties in education, in highways, in VOTEC, now career tech, whatever you want to come up with, united. And what ticked me off about 3 weeks ago was a headline in the Daily Oklahoman referring to the United States of America. The United States of America, about how the country is just apart. And of course, the same thing has happened seemingly in Oklahoma. I think we need to concentrate on pulling all 77 counties together. And one of the things I'll never forget, after my first term that I got elected governor, I barely won it. I beat Ron Schatz, a football player from OU, #1 star in Oklahoma at the time, and he ran against me when I was running, and I barely beat him. Now, when I ran for re-election, I carried all 77 counties. I was the first governor ever to be re-elected. And they said, he's the first governor ever in Oklahoma history to be re-elected. Well, what they don't point out is that it was under the Bartlett. It only could serve 1 term, but the Bartlett had the people vote on it, and he ran for re-election and lost to David Hall. He ran for re-election and lost to David Ward, and David Ward didn't run for re-election. He ran for the U.S. Senate, so I ran for governor. And I got re-elected, so I'm the first governor in history. There's only 3 before me that were eligible. Well, I don't point that out too much. But one of the things is that all 77 counties, it's important. It's important for me to come to Northwest. It was important for me to go to the Panhandle State. So it was important for me to go to Podo Junior College, now the Carlisle. I wanted to be on campus of basically of every state public education, many privates. All 77. We need to pull Oklahoma together. And I went to my first governor's meeting when I got elected in 1958. So in 1959, I went to National Governors Association. They had the newly elected governors sit like you are, facing me. Then they had up here 5 current governors, and then behind us sat all the other governors, but no press, no security, no spouse, no friend, no assistant, just governors in the office. And they told us what to expect as governor. We were the new people. We're going to tell you what to expect. The first thing one of the governors said, the most frequent request you'll ever get is fix my road. That was in 1959. Now, I'm going to talk about Denny Hopkins over there at Woodard. We came up with an idea that I am still to this day very proud of. We came up with the idea that we need to improve roads in all 77 counties. So first of all, I got the Highway Commission to agree. I didn't tell them they had to, but I asked them to, and they agreed. They would work together, and they would make sure that there was highway construction in every county in the state every year. But imagine when they're fixing a 4-lane road, that a 2-lane road is kind of difficult to do because you're spending all that on those 4-lane roads. And I looked at the state highway map, and the state highways were one color, the federal highways were another color, and down here, way down here at where the Red River goes into Arkansas, Louisiana, was a town called Tom. And there was just a little bitty different color from the road from Broken Bow or wherever it was to Tom. I said, what's that? I mean, the whole 77 counties, what's that? And they said, well, it's a gravel state highway. I said, we got a gravel state highway? I said to the highway director, I said, here's your choice. Either hard surface it or give it to the county and make it a county road. But I do not want, while I'm in governor's office, a state highway that's gravel. And they said, well, not many people down there that even vote. That's not, and they paved the road. And Denny and I got to thinking about how do we connect. And we came up with the idea that we'd go from Oklahoma City out past Boise City on that Highway 3, I guess. Highway 3 starts in southeastern Oklahoma down around Broken Bow and comes up all the way through Oklahoma City and all the way through the Panhandle. It's the longest highway in Oklahoma. And we came up with the idea, let's fix it. Well, it went through 4 highway commissioners' districts, but in one of them, it just went over about 10 miles. And I said, I want a commitment that every one of you will make it #1 priority, that you will hard surface, you will fix improve the road that goes through your district. And one of them said, well, I'm supposed to represent my district, not his. And this is I don't even have a town on there, but it goes through my district. I said, I can't improve a road from Oklahoma City to the Colorado line and you go over gravel for 15 miles. That makes sense. So they said, okay. So they all pledged. And what was remarkable is that it took many, many years to build it. But Henry Bellman followed me as governor. And I said, Henry, I can't tell you what to do, but I want to tell you, I hope you will finish the highway that we have in Northwest Oklahoma. And I want to tell you the good news is I have set aside and have in a pocket savings from highway construction that will fund everything that needs to be done. And you don't have to raise the money, you don't have to worry about raising taxes, you don't have to worry about paying, because I put it aside. And he said, I'll finish it. And so when we announced it, we came to Woodard. Denny was the chairman, and Denny presided. We had a highway commission meeting, and we had the mayors of all the towns from Oklahoma City to Boise City. Almost all the mayors met with the highway commission, and they voted to approve this road. Now, what I'm telling you about is what I want to make my point. I did not name it the George Nigh Northwest Passage. I named it the Northwest Passage because I had taught American history in high school, and Sacagawea and Lewis and Clark and the Northwest Highway, and I wanted the Northwest Passage. I wanted the Northwest Passage in Oklahoma, and then we did it. And then what made me proud is after I had left office, the legislature passed a bill naming it the George Nigh Northwest Passage. And what really makes me proud, a House Republican authored the bill to name it after me. But I would not allow anybody to name anything after me while I was in office. I said, I don't want that because I know it'll make some people mad. The Oklahoman will write an editorial about it. I don't want to don't do that. And so the legislature from Henrietta came over and wanted to build a new rehab center between around Henrietta and Oklahoma. And he said, we want to name it for George Nigh. I said, do not name a building for me. I don't want to read editorials criticizing me for naming buildings for me. Do not name it that. They said, okay. So they invited me over to cut the ribbon and pull the cord, and the sheet dropped and the name came up, the George Nigh Rehab Center. And what was funny, the Oklahoman did have an article. Mr. Gaylord wrote an opinion that it was very well named George Nigh Rehab Center, because if anybody needed rehab, George Nigh did. But what I want to talk about, when I talk about the highways and the Republicans working with me, also that this week, do you know the name Bob Burke? He's a book writer. He has written more nonfiction books than anybody in the world. And he's in the Guinness Book of Records, and he's from Hochatown in southeastern Oklahoma. And he's going to have a book signing this week on Tim Leonard, the state senator from the Panhandle area, and he's writing a book about him. I talked to him on the phone about a month ago, and I said, where are you now? He said, I'm driving to Norman. I said, why are you going to Norman? I'm interviewing Hal Smith. I'm writing a book about all the restaurants he owns. He's in the Guinness Book of Records. But Denny and I take pride that the federal government, Denny, told me that what Denny and I put together from Oklahoma City to the Colorado line was the longest highway announcement any governor has ever made in American history. 300 and some odd miles long. Now to show you how things happen, I belong to Westminster Presbyterian Church, and about 4 years ago, I was sitting in church and the minister said, hey, we have some out-of-town guests visiting with us. We have several from out of town. Would everybody who's from out of town stand up now so our members could welcome you? And two seats in front of me, this guy stood up. And he said, now turn and shake hands with everybody around you. Welcome them to our church. And I leaned over. I said, I'm George Nigh. He said, I know who you are. Your road needs some work done on it. I said, I'm not even governor anymore. But there again, we did not promise to 4-lane. We promised to improve every single foot. I guess that's okay, because we did promise that Jesus would be in charge of every single foot, every single inch of Oklahoma. But every single foot would be improved. So we put in 3-lane, passing lanes, full parking lanes, full, whatever it is, 4 lanes, and it'd go up down from Oklahoma City up there. But I think working together. Now the reason I am talking about this, working together, that when the senator that I just told you about, when his book comes out, I don't know if it'll be in there, but he was chairman of the Republican caucus in the Oklahoma Senate while I was governor. Young leader.
Nice man.
Nice man. And he would call me and ask me as governor to come and speak to the Republican caucuses. And I'd go just like this, and they said, say a few words and then let everybody ask your questions. And I met with the Republican caucus 8 different times in 8 years, at least, maybe more, because we were working together. We need to try to be united. Now, I'm not saying we need to give up. I'm saying we need to make deals, but I think we need to reach agreements. We need to try to work together, see if we can work it out. And sometimes it's tough to get things worked out. But sometimes you have to take a step. Now, I was driven today by these 2 great guys, And I was in the back seat, and I put on the seatbelt, and then we were riding. I said, do I have to wear this back seat? No. But they both wore seatbelts in the front. When I was governor, I got the seatbelt law passed. Okay? Got the seatbelt law passed, and the legislators, Democrat and Republican from Western Oklahoma, came to me and said, we don't want a seatbelt in our farm vehicles, in our pickup truck, or our tractor, whatever. We don't want it. And I said, but it's safety. We don't want it. And I didn't have enough votes to pass it. So I agreed to the legislature to amend it, and they deleted, and it was only the driver's seat had to have a seatbelt. Came back legislative session the next year. It was so easy and popular, they said, oh yeah, we'll take them. So we added the other seat back. So I got what I wanted, but it took me 2 years to get it. But I worked together to get it. And I also want to say that what I'm trying to stress before I start answering questions is that I'm not ashamed that I've held public office for 32 years. And I'm going to say something I maybe not should say, but it fits in my speech. It bothered me that when Drew Edmondson, a former Attorney General, had served 16 years as Attorney General, ran for governor, the campaign against him ran full-page ads criticizing for being a professional politician. He served as 16 years as Attorney General. He's just a professional politician. And Jim Inhofe has just retired, and I like Jim Inhofe. I appreciate what he's done for Oklahoma, but he served over 60 years in public office. And the people that criticized Drew for being a professional politician for 16 years never have said a word about him serving 60 years in public office. And I want to point out that I'm trying to say there's a difference also between a professional politician and a public servant. And I hope that we can stress upon people, there's nothing wrong with being a politician as long as you kiss babies, you shake hands, you go door to door, you run ads, you make speeches. There's nothing wrong with that as a politician. But a professional politician is someone who's always cutting deals. We don't want professional politicians. We want politicians who become, and when they're in office, they are public servants. I want to close with this. You all get ready. I said, all 77 counties, I visit every one of them every year. All 77 counties, I said, there'll be road reconstruction in every one of them. All regional universities will get improvement money. This will be 77 counties. As a state representative from McAllister and Pittsburgh County, I represented one county. So just imagine as governor, I represented 77. And those 77 might not have agreed with what I had done for one county. But I had to kind of, every once in a while, change my position because my state didn't want everything my county wanted them to do. But public service, all men are created equal, and that means all men and women, all red, black, yellow, brown, and white, men and women are created equal. And so one of the things I'm most proud of as a public servant is I told you we had over 300 state agencies and boards. I had a cabinet built on my governor's wall, and I had every state agency, board, and commission, who was on it, what their race was, what their sex was, what their party was, and when their term was up. And I said, before I leave office, as I appoint members to commission, every single commission in the state of Oklahoma will have at least one of each sex. I put a woman on they're dominated by white men. There'll be at least one woman, one man on every commission. There'll be at least one minority. There'll be at least one person from every area of the state. It's 77 counties. I said, and there will be one Republican. When I left office after 8 years, and all the agencies, one agency had 9 members, 8 of them met my deal. The 9th one was still on there, and I said, would you retire early so I can appoint somebody? And they said, no, I'm not going to retire. And I said, okay, so I've missed it on one. So I'll now let you all ask the questions. These two mean guys. Now, I talk a lot, so you tell me when I need to shut up. Are we going to sit down? Okay. Anyway, you've got a Northwest highway we call it Denny Hospital. Okay. And anybody else that needs to leave here will not embarrass me that you have to leave.
Would you like to have a seat, or do you?
I'll just stand and hold on.
Okay, all right. Well, I think that's kind of what we've all been doing. You know, we're just holding on for whatever you got to say. So, but Governor Nigh, it's really a pleasure to have you here tonight. So, I want to ask you a few questions about some of your time in the public service arena. And one of the most interesting stories, I think, for Oklahomans here tonight is that you were the state legislator who authored the bill that made Oklahoma, the Broadway musical hit, the state song. But getting that song passed as the state song, even though it's widely loved today, was kind of an adventure back then. So tell us a little bit about that.
You need to sit down because it's a long story. 1943, I'm a sophomore in high school at McAllister, listening to the Saturday Night Live and studying for a test on Monday morning. And on the radio, they said, number 10, most popular song in America. Number 9, number 7, number 4, number 1, most popular song in America. Oklahoma weather. I said, they're singing about my state. I'm in the ninth grade, where the wind comes sweeping down the rain. And keep in mind that, I'll tell you that later. And I said, man, that's beautiful. And I just couldn't imagine. 1943. 10 years later, I was in my second term in the state legislature, and I proposed that we change the state song to Oklahoma. And old man Huff, a state legislator from Ada, probably in his 60s, old man Huff, got up and said, you want to change our state song? You want to change it from one that was rich in tradition and couched in history? And you want to take it to two New York Jews who've never even been to Oklahoma? And you want to say taters and tomatoes? And you want to get rid of the song we already have? He started singing, I give you a land. And we had only one podium of sun and flowers and summer the whole day through. And the crowd just sat there, and he put down the microphone and he walked out, and he got to the chorus, Oklahoma, and he started crying. And now he's singing the state song, Oklahoma is the land I love the best, and so I give you Oklahoma. And he walked around and got legislators by the arm and made them stand and had them stand up while he finished singing the whole, which I could do, but I ain't gonna do it. I have not said the half. I have not said the half. So I give you Oklahoma. It's a toast we all can quaff. And I got up and said, we can't say tomatoes or potatoes, but we can quaff. It's a toast we all can quaff. And so I realized, though, that he had the floor of the House in tears. So I got up and said, Mr. Speaker, I move that we put over consideration of House Bill 1014 for one legislative day. And he didn't know what I was doing. He didn't object. If he'd objected, we'd never laid it over. We'd have killed it that day. He got on the phone, and he first of all, he got the legislator from Chickasha and said, have you got a choir down there that can sing songs from Oklahoma? Oh, I mean, I'm saying this. I said, you got a choir down there that would sing Oklahoma? And he said, yes. I said, okay, I want them up here tomorrow in costume. Okay? Then I called Bridge Bond, who went to high school with my 3 older brothers, and I knew him personally. The only Oklahoma to ever star as Curly on Broadway. He was living in Tulsa in the real estate business. I called him up. I said, Bridge, can you be at the Capitol? You still got some of that crap you wore? And he said, yes. I said, can you be at the Capitol tomorrow with a big buckle and a hat and sing it with the chorus? He said, yeah, when we go to practice? I said, there is no practice. Then I called Jenkins Music Store. And I said, you got any piece of legislation you're trying to get passed that you need some help with to get that bill passed? And they said, yeah, matter of fact, we really do. I need a piano tomorrow. They said, piano. The choir came, then I got up and said, Mr. Speaker, I move we give privileges of the floor to the choir from Oklahoma College for Women. And they came in their college, they sing all the songs from Oklahoma, and they do this, and their dresses would do this, and then suddenly the piano went, and Ridge kicked open the door, and he had a big bell going like, oh, and they started singing, and there were 300 people in the upstairs, or the 5th floor, looking down over the legislature. They said in the gallery, 300 people, over 300, and they all stood clapping. Oklahoma Road. Of course, I put them all up there. And the legislators got up and started doing this. Oklahoma, okay, you! I said, Mr. Speaker, I moved passage of House Bill, and it passed. Away. Do you know what the name of the song is? It's Oklahoma. Do you know what the name of the play is?
Oklahoma.
Do you know?
No.
Okay. The name of the play is O-K-L-A-H-O. The name of the song is O-K-L-A-H-O-M-A. Oklahoma. That's the song. The play is O-K-L-A-H-O-M-A, exclamation point. Rodgers and Hammerstein had opened off Broadway. They were sitting around one day, Rich Bond told me this story. They were sitting around saying, oh, we're not doing very well in Philadelphia. The crowd's not very excited. They opened it, went up to Boston. Oh, boy, the crowd's over there, they're not doing it. And they said, we need something exciting. And she said, well, the play, they didn't open as Oklahoma, it opened as Green Grow the Lilacs, and then they changed his name, and they were on Away We Go, was the name of it for a while, because nobody's excited. And Mrs. Emerson said, well, why don't we call it Oklahoma? And someone in the crowd said, what's exciting about Oklahoma? And and she said, let's put an exclamation point after it and call it Oklahoma. So to this day, your state song is Oklahoma.
So, one of the interesting things, of course, your political career has quite a few fascinating feats in it. You served 4 terms as Oklahoma's governor, more than anyone in Oklahoma history. But on the way to the governorship, which you sought since you were in the 9th grade, you had some losses along the way. You lost some elections. How did you pull yourself back up from those losses and keep marching on?
Well, I don't want to say those elections, there was only one. And I served as governor. You know, under the Constitution, you can only be governor 2 times. 4 times I've been governor of Oklahoma. That's when the governor's office became vacant, and as lieutenant governor, I became the governor. One was for 9 days, one was for 5 days. Then one was for 4 years, and then 8 years. But I'm legally the 17th governor of Oklahoma. I served 9 days. So I've served 4 official terms in 8 years and 18 days or something. But I've served more days than any governor and more terms than any governor. I said that professional politician. When I was in the 9th grade, I listened to Franklin Roosevelt's fireside chats on the radio every Saturday night. And I fell in love with the president. And I would sit every Saturday night and listen to him. And I decided that's what I wanted to be, a chief executive. I didn't want to be a legislator, I didn't want to be lieutenant governor, I didn't want to be president or Congress or anything. I wanted to be governor. And so in the 9th grade, I was in a class and you wrote down what you wanted to be when you grew up. And then we would study what each kid wrote down for a whole semester, doctor, lawyer, merchant, chief, and so forth. I wrote down governor in the 9th grade. I did not have a single issue. There wasn't anything I was for or against. I just wanted to be governor. My senior year in high school, one of the teachers put a sheet over her head. You could just see it. She was turned a goldfish bowl upside down, and she's, I see the future. I see that Bill Smith has just won the Academy Award. I see the future. I see Marilyn Jones just did this on Broadway. I see George Nigh. This is a senior class assembly program. I see George Nigh has just been elected president. And the senior class just cheered, yay! Senior in high school. And she said, oh, of the United States. The crowd cheered, yay! And he said, Street Cleaners Association. When I got discharged, I was in boot camp when Japan surrendered in World War II. So I was in the Navy about a year and a half. When I was discharged, naval base at OU. They asked me what I want to do. I said, I'm going to go home and be governor. No issues. I was talking about public service, not about professional politicians. And I think we need to, you know, in a democracy, what does democracy mean? Voice of the people. The people get to select who represents them. That's what a democracy is. So why get mad at somebody? And we can't draft anybody to be governor. We can't draft anybody to be congressman. They have to offer themselves. So why do we get kicked off because somebody offers themselves? You just vote. You have a selection. You vote. But don't discourage people from public service. And public service is what you do once you get in office. Yes?
Okay. So that's when you were elected to the state legislature. Of course, you were pretty young. You were fresh out of college.
23.
Right. What was your ultimate goal in running for the legislature back then for the state of Oklahoma? And do you think that you fulfilled that?
Well, the reason I ran for the legislature, I had no dream. I never thought I wanted to be a legislator. But see, you can't be governor until you're 31. And I wanted to climb the ladder to get recognized statewide, that people would know me and want to vote for me. And so I was thinking, what do I do? Well, Lonnie W. Brown was a state representative from McAllister, and he called me in college. I was a senior. He called me and said, you need to file for the legislature. I'm not going to run again. I said, I don't want to run for the legislature. He said, you need to start climbing that ladder, and I'm not running, and it's easier to run for an empty seat than it is to run against an incumbent. So run now while the seat is empty and you're on equal footing with basically. So I filed for the legislature, got elected to the House, 4 terms, filed for lieutenant governor, got elected. I was the youngest lieutenant governor in the nation. You have to be 31 to be lieutenant governor. I was 30 when I filed, and I didn't know if I qualified or not, but I got elected, and my birthday came, I was sworn in after my birthday. So I was legally 31 years of age. And then I ran for governor, and then that's when I lost. In 1962, I lost the governor's race, and I'm always, I thank the good Lord every night for losing that race. Because that's when I met Donna. I had lost the race. I rented an office from TWA, and there was this good-looking chick working for TWA that I met every day when I went to work. And we dated for about 5 months and got married. And she's just wonderful. To this day, she's still wonderful. And I said, it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me, that is I lost. But in 66, I said, I want to start climbing the ladder again. And so I came back, 66, then got reelected 2 more times, so 4 terms. So I never wanted to be anything but governor, but I climbed the ladder.
Well, thank you very much, and I think that we're ready for anybody who has any questions. So if you have any, just stand up and ask, and if anybody talks over somebody else, we'll just get to them all one by one.
So I understand you had the very first driver's license.
Excuse me. I may be lucky. I have hearing aids, and he's going to tell me what your question is.
He said he was joking about having a pretty rare driver's license.
While I was governor, the highway patrol came to my office and said, do you want the driver's license number 1? The guy who had number 1 in Oklahoma had passed away. I said, well, sure. So my driver's license is 8 zeros and a 1. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And it's just amazing. But when I try to cash a check out of the state, they say, and they say, give me your driver's license. They say, And I haven't told you this, but my wife and I were driving through Mississippi. I was speaking at a former legislator, was inducted as president of Rotary, and he asked me to come down from Oklahoma and be the speaker at his induction. Well, I was speeding. Mississippi Highway Patrolman pulled me over, and he said, show me your driver's license. I said, yes, sir. I gave it to him. He said, stay there. Do not move. 5 minutes, he went back to his car and sat in the front seat, and he came back up and gave me my driver's license. He had called the Oklahoma Highway Patrol to verify. He said, I knew I either had a VIP or the dumbest criminal I'd ever met. So, sometimes they don't want to take it. I said, well, that's valid, that's valid. Anybody else? I don't want to be too long-winded, so. Oh, Shirley. Yes, please.
What advice would you give to young people experiencing so much political divide?
what advice would you give young people who are growing up in a very politically divided culture?
I think it's tough. I just don't understand why they I said one time that what bothers me is Congress or the state legislature, they're going to have a meeting, Democrat and Republicans, and one group may be in the room waiting for the other group to come. And there's this line, and the one that's going in there said, now remember this, if they don't agree to this, we ain't doing what they want. And the ones in the room are saying, now remember this, if they don't do this, we're not doing what they want. They draw a line before they ever just sit down and try to work something out. Now, like I say, don't make a deal. A deal to me is somebody's getting benefits that they shouldn't have. But reach an agreement. Come together. And what I worry about is they refuse to talk to each other. And I think what I also worry about is just because he's a registered Republican, why do we chew him out? Chew him out for what he does, not how. Because under the law, you have to list the party that you're going to run on in the election. So you have to choose Democrat, Republican, Independent. And so why could you get mad at somebody that for us to have a governor, us to have legislators, congressmen, they have to offer themselves. And I want them to offer themselves on what they want to do, not on, don't you vote for that dirty rat. I think you're a professional politician when you terribly attack your opponent personally and you're not sure what you're attacking him on. I think you're a professional politician if you lie during your campaign. And I'm sorry I'm going to mention the party, but I'm very upset politically, emotionally, public service-wise, of the Republican congressman who lied about where he lived, who lied about his parents when they came to America, who lied about his race, who lied about graduating from college he didn't even attend, who lied and lied and lied and lied and got elected. And the new Speaker of the House and the House, that not once have they issued criticism of him for what he had done. He lied. Now, while he's serving, how are you going to know whether or not to believe him? I mean, he lied about his college and he didn't even attend it. And so I think that's terrible. Then other things like that bother me. It's too political. It's too partisan. It's too anti. And Jim Leonard, the Republican state senator, to this day is one of my best friends. I'm hoping I go to the book signing this week. Henry Bellman and I were big buddies. I told them coming up in the car tonight, Henry Bellman died. He had 2 funerals, one in Edmond, one in Perry. And the one in Edmond, all the former governors and all the legislative leaders of it went to the Baptist church, or whichever church, Presbyterian church, for his funeral. And the minister had been his chief of staff, and after they left office, he went to school and got his religious license as being a preacher, and he was presiding at Henry Bellman's funeral. And they sang a hymn, and we were standing, and I don't sing because I can't carry a tune, and I have trouble reading the song. And so I was just looking up, everybody else is, and I look up there and I don't see him. Then the song is over and nobody says be seated, and the crowd was still standing. And I hit my wife, I said, look up there, that's the bottom of his 2 feet. He had passed out falling over backwards behind and to the side of the lectern. And we just sat there. Nobody did anything. I said, Donna said, you need to go preside over his service. I said, what? Said, you all were friends. You need to save this service. And by that time, we heard a siren coming in the background and security come up and they were carrying him out. So I just got up, went up on the stage and said, okay, we'll continue and we're going to have speakers and speak with this. And when you look at the program and when it's your time to speak, you just come up and speak because I ain't going to introduce you. But I presided over the rest of Republican Governor Henry Bellman. But I think that's another story I want to tell. Working together, Henry Bellman was the first Republican governor ever elected in Oklahoma. The legislature was still Democratic. Every other statewide office that was elected was a Democrat. Henry Bellman was the only Republican elected statewide official at the Capitol. And the legislature was Democratic. He had to work with the Democrats for his 4 years as governor then, or he couldn't have gotten anything done. He couldn't say, I ain't talking to you damn Democrats. He worked with them. When I was running for re-election, the State Department of Welfare was a political animal. And I wanted to get it out of politics. Lloyd Rader retired. I said, I'm not going to let welfare be a political thing in Oklahoma. And I'm meeting with my campaign staff and my office staff, and I said, I want Henry Bellman had just left the U.S. Senate, was back home in Billings. I said, I'm going to appoint Henry Bellman head of the welfare department. They said, a Republican? Henry Bellman? First Republican governor? I said, yeah. I got on the phone, I called Billings, I talked to Shirley. I said, Shirley, this George guy, is Henry there? Well, he's out plowing right now. I said, well, when he gets through plowing and he comes in the house, have him call me. He called me and I said, Henry, I want you to be head of the State Department of Welfare. He said, why would I do that? I said, because the state needs you. The state needs you to take welfare out of politics, which basically was Democratic politics. So I was a Democrat taking stands. I don't want the Department of Welfare so political. And he said, well, let me think about it. In about 15 minutes, he called me back and said, I've just got one question. If I take the head of agency as a job, who's going to run it, me or you? I said, Henry, you've been governor. You know what a governor hopes for in an agency head. Run it. He said, I'll take it. And I think it took so much politics out of my re-election campaign. Because the Republicans had a hard time attacking me because I just appointed their first former Republican governor to head of the state agency. Okay, but I would tell young people, help us that are older and still fussing with each other, help us to come together, be involved, but don't be so dang critical, don't be mean, don't be terrible, don't make up dirty stuff. Don't attack somebody simply because they filed for office. You can be against what they propose, but that doesn't mean they're dishonest. But if they are dishonest and lying in the campaign, how you know that when they hold office they're not going to lie some more? Okay, let's take one more. You got one? Yeah. You got a question? No. Well, since yes.
I know it's kind of in the same realm of what she asked, but if you could go back and give your 23-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
If you could go back and advise your 23-year-old self about something, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I don't know, because I think I was very successful, so I don't want to say I don't want to say I did anything wrong. Now, I'm not saying I was a great governor or or legislator or lieutenant governor, but I'm saying that I enjoyed public service. I enjoyed working together. I got a lot of joint bills passed in the legislature by getting Republicans and Democrats working together. As a governor, I got a lot done working with Republican legislators. And so I'm just saying, I don't have any major regrets or anything that I've done at all. Now, I've made mistakes, but I don't have a major regret. I just messed up. Now, I may not have been fantastic, but I just didn't really mess up. And let me tell you what I'm really proud of. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm really proud of. I was in office 8 years as governor. Not one single member of my staff was ever accused of anything illegal or inappropriate. Not one of them. 8 years. And I don't know how you can defend somebody that you appointed that disobeyed the law, did not follow the law, but you appointed them and you don't say, no, you can't do that, don't do that. You just let them get along with it. I don't want us to do that. But I encourage everybody to be involved, but learn as much as you can about a candidate. Learn how they get along with people. And if they're mean and bully as a candidate, don't vote for them. Please. Let's have decent campaigns, both Democrats and Republicans. And hopefully we'll get together again, all 77. Okay, you got a closer?
So for young people who are involved with being a public servant, and you've been a public servant for so long, how did you keep that flame going? What were the things you did to stay in public service and not get burnt out?
So you were in public service for a long time.
32 years.
How did you keep that flame, that passion for public service going without getting burned out?
Because it took me, say I was there 32 years, subtract 8, how many is that? 24? So I was there 24 years before I got to be what I wanted to be. So I couldn't get worn out because I was still trying to be governor. And come hell or high water, I wanted to be governor. And I used to teach civics. And this is kind of interesting. They had a law that you could not hold 2 state jobs. That's the law. You can't hold 2 state jobs. Well, when I went to the legislature, I didn't have any other job, so they only met every other year. So after 5 months of meeting, you were out of there 15, 17 months. You just came up occasionally for a committee meeting. So you had to have another job. The Supreme Court ruled that a teacher was not a state employee. And as you know, you've been following the U.S. Supreme Court's changing opinions. That changes the law. Their opinion changes the law. Well, the courts later held that the teacher was an employee of the school district, not of the state. So you'd teach for 5 months, then you'd be in the legislature for 5 months, then you'd go home. So 7 out of the 8 years that I was in the legislature, I taught civics and Oklahoma history. Then the courts ruled, yes, a teacher is a state job, so now teachers cannot hold office. And I don't know what the law is now. And I'm not trying to be publicly critical, but the new Secretary of Education has 2 state jobs. He's Secretary of Education, and the governor has him on his cabinet as his Secretary of Education and pays him a salary. None of the other cabinet members do that. But he says, and then the other day he asked for something over higher education, the regional universities in the state region. And they said, you don't have any authority over us. He said, I'm the Secretary of Education. You're the Secretary of Public Education. grade schools, high schools, nothing else. He said, I want this information from higher education. And they said, you don't have that authority. And he announced, I'm not asking for that as the state superintendent of public instruction. I'm asking for it as the governor's cabinet secretary on education. And I said, can you believe that? Every time he said something now, he said, now remember, I'm the secretary of education. No, I want you, remember, I'm on the cabinet. Has to explain which one he is when he asks the question, because the other one, he doesn't have any authority. That's weird. But it's not challenged. And I think they ought to challenge it. But when I taught civics, and I'll close with this. In public service, I taught civics, there were 3 branches of government in our Constitution. Legislative, executive, and judicial. Legislative passes the laws. Judicial interprets the law. Executive enforces the law. And so, if you're the legislature, you basically don't have any authority in telling people what to do if they're a state employee. Because the governor and the agency heads have that authority. On the other hand, if you're who has what authority? I say you're either legislative, executive, or judicial. You're not in the other guy's profession. You're in yours. And let me close then by saying, bring Oklahoma together again. Let's be united, all 77 counties. Let's help our students in every area of the state. Let's train them so that they can have a job in Oklahoma and can live here. They don't have to move out of state. We need to train better, more young adults so they can live in Oklahoma. I'm honored. Thank you all very much. If y'all would just give me about 4 or 5 minutes, I'll tell you what we're doing. I gave my first commencement speech when I was a senior in college at Ada, and I'd hitchhike home 60 miles, but I got invited to give a commencement speech to a 2-room schoolhouse for 8 grades. 2 teachers in a 2-room schoolhouse of 8 grades on a rural gravel road. I hitchhiked in Pittsburgh County. So I hitchhiked home 65 miles. Then when I got out of the service station and hitchhiked 5 or 6 miles up a gravel road to school and arrived at the school to give a commencement speech. I was in the back of a pickup truck. And that was my first commencement speech. Well, this year will mark my 73rd consecutive year of making at least 1 commencement speech, sometimes as many as 5. 73 consecutive years of making a commencement speech. So I told them when they invited me up here, I said, I don't have a commencement speech yet, so let me give one while I'm here. So to the students, let me tell you, the best thing I can tell you is that as you face your commencement, remember your commencement from high school. And remember what the word is. Now, you're a senior in high school. You've been there 12 years. You're graduating, but you're having a commencement. And commencement means begin, to begin. You go to college, university. You go at least 4 years, maybe. And just think all the time you're there, you're looking forward to a commencement speech, but just think in high school, it was the end of your education in high school, and they gave you a commencement to begin. So as you're at Northwestern, I want to tell you that you're at college and freshman, junior, sophomore, junior, senior. And you're looking forward to your commencement, the ending, which is the beginning of a graduate's life. So you prepare in your education to begin a different phase of your life. And what I want to encourage you, so I told him I want to call it a commencement speech, so I can say, well, I've already made a commencement speech in 2023. I haven't missed a year. But I want to say that just think that where you are, whatever your age, if you come to a commencement at college, it's the ending, and you get a degree, and you hang it on the wall, maybe. But hopefully you went there to begin a totally different life. So learn education, learn how to get along with your fellow students, so that when you get out, you get along with your fellow citizens. And don't think that you can decide what you want to do necessarily. Don't think that you'll wait and decide after you get out with that diploma and hang on and say, what the heck am I going to do? Have now, while you're in school and you're looking for your commencement, your beginning, have in mind, what do I want to be when I get out of here? And so that's why I say, I started in the 9th grade. And the classes I took were civics and government, so I would know more about state government. In junior high, I organized bicycle parades for candidates for office. We put clothespins on the bicycle tire with a piece of cardboard, and as you pedal, it went, and we prayed. We went all through McAllister on Main Street and Choctaw Avenue in a campaign trail. But you have to think of what you want to do later. Be thinking of that now. Don't just be thinking of getting a grade in a class. But as you prepare for your commencement, which is an ending, prepare for your commencement, which is the beginning of a new life. And so I commend you for continuing your education, and I wish you the best and tell you now, not only learn education, but learn how to work in life, because that will be important to you as you have a job and do your work. And I would like to ask, does any student have a question they'd like to ask me about before I say let's quit? Any student want to ask a personal question? Okay, so my best wishes to all of you. I'm honored that the seniors are here tonight to be with me, and I'm glad that the college students are here. And to be here with you is a great honor for me. Thank you for being a part of my life, and I still love it. I still love it. Thank you very much.